What I wanted to talk today about is the subject of addiction, which is something that touches many people's lives. Humans have this tendency to reach towards substances or activities that make themselves feel better. And the results of this can vary. It can be very severe and destructive, or it can just be mildly annoying. So, my question is, I know it's a big topic, but bringing it to basics, what is at the root of addictions? And for those people who would like to free themselves from addiction, what are some of the key concepts they can keep in mind as they start this process?
Uh, by root, I'm guessing you mean cause.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's actually a number of different causes,
Mm.
but maybe a root cause is we're human beings. So
Mm.
uh, I think we're somewhat set up to want to have pleasurable things, feel pleasure, feel good, and avoid pain. So that's very instinctual, and we're set up that way. We have to learn how to find satisfaction and joy and pleasure in things that are healthy and avoid things that aren't healthy. So we don't come knowing which is which. We have to be taught and we have to learn it. And we can come in touch with things that uh, we want to do over and over again that initially feel good or help us avoid pain, but then become addictive. In other words, we become dependent upon them, and the dependency ends up having consequences that are generally not favorable.
Mm-hmm.
So
So,
the big cause is we're on the planet, and human beings, like comfort and pleasure and to feel good and avoid pain, which who can argue with that, right?
yeah, so it's kind of a common situation then. We're not saying, well, these are the addicts and these are not the addicts. Like we all want to pursue pleasurable things.
Yeah, we do. So how is it that some people don't seem to be addicted where others do? And there's a lot of research on that, and there's a lot of controversy also.
And what's your take on that?
I think there's a genetic component. There is, we call that nature, maybe. And there is, like I just said, we're human beings. So that's, in a way, a genetic component. And there's a component of what we grow up with, what we learn how to do. So many times people that grow up in addictive families end up developing the same behaviors. Shouldn't be a big surprise, right? Um, and then also, people use substances and people and things to get away from trauma and pain. So there's a lot of work done in trauma and addiction and the connection between the two, like that.
Now, I once read in a book that it's like a graph where there's on one axis you have genetic predisposition, and on the other axis you have stress, life stress.
Mm-hmm.
So someone might have low genetic predisposition to addiction, but high stress, traumatic upbringing that could trigger it. And then on the other side, you may have high genetic predisposition and low stress, and then there's everything in between. Would you say that would be for addiction as well as for mental illness?
Possibly. Uh, I think, having said something that, there's some genetic predisposition, the problem is it's always looking backwards, right? It's not like we can download someone's chromosomes and identify, okay, that's the added chromosome and you got too much of it. Um, so it's always looking backwards and saying they must have had this. So uh, this is kind of the pseudoscience idea that we can, just identify like that's the addict gene and they've got more of that. And that isn't the case. Usually people do a history of families and they see that there tends to be um, things that run in families probably the most work is alcohol, but it's doing kind of backward science, so we can't test people that have passed on, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And some people, uh, come from very dysfunctional, addicted families, and then there's tons of stress and horrible things that happened and trauma, and they haven't developed any overt addictive patterns.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of addiction work means working with uh, what we have and kind of going forward like that. The Western science, like everybody wants to find the first cause and then we just eliminate the cause, but um, I don't think it's quite that easy. I mean, we
Interesting.
should keep working, but I think there are actually
Yeah.
multiple causes, and people are very individual too. We do know that if you do too much of something, whether you call it addicted or not, it's going to have an effect that you don't want, right?
Well, even drinking too much water can kill you.
Yeah, yeah. that's
um,
that's why I would say, please take the middle way.
yes. So, recovery is a huge topic, obviously, but if you have these 4 minutes now to speak to someone about some advice to push them forward on their journey, what might that be?
Uh, I do think that a big part of traditional recovery, like AA, Alcoholic Anonymous, or NA, Narcotics Anonymous, does stress reliance on a power greater than ourselves. Um, so that doesn't have to be spiritual, but it has to be something that's more powerful than the addiction, right?
Hmm.
And it also has to be immediate. One reason people start using anything, whether it's fantasy addictions like gambling or porn, or substance addictions like alcohol or drugs, or shopping addictions, things like that, is that um, we they're immediate, and they work right away, and they get us out of some pain and give us some pleasure right away. So something that has to be more powerful than that, right? So generally in recovery work, we have to show that what they're doing is actually harmful and isn't very pleasurable, and that we have to hold out something that's going to be more satisfying, more liberating, more efficacious than the addiction. So that can
So,
be hard, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's addictions work, and people look at a lot of books and they think, oh, well, everyone's got it figured out and it's really easy, you just do XYZ, but it's not. Um, and so many factors go in it. But generally, someone has to be kind of really done or fed up or hit bottom with whatever they're doing, and they say, this doesn't work, it's not giving me what I want at all. In fact, it's giving me everything I don't want. And then they have to see a positive future, they have to see a positive outcome. And the
Mm-hmm.
path is between those two, and generally people need a lot of support.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so there's a lot of books, but they're not really enough programs. It's not that easy to get into residential, or it's not that easy to do addictions work. It's expensive. So that's why self-help groups like AA are still very popular, even though some people have differences with their
Mm-hmm.
approach.
Now, how might one discover that higher power if, say, they're not religious or nothing's really resonating with them? Like, you can't just conjure this up? Uh,
Yeah,
how would you find it?
that's really an important question. That's probably another one of these talks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, how does that happen? So uh, there are religious styles, there's spiritual styles, there's humanistic styles, there's psychological styles of what will be more powerful, and there's medication styles. So actually that is a whole talk, and um, it's not that easy, because even when the addiction behavior isn't working, it's hard to stop, because if you're addicted, you're going to have withdrawal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not only does a higher power have to be something that in general you'd want to turn to, but also something that would help us through a long withdrawal, a long grieving process from our special friend who's probably taken over our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a humanistic way, the higher power has to be a group of people that really care and understand us. And the hardest part about a lot of addictions is people try to white knuckle it. People can't stop by themselves alone, but to continue stop and to make up for the deficits that the addiction has produced, generally people do need a group. You need a community. You need a lot of friends.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
friends heal, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. I know this is a large topic to speak
Yeah,
briefly
maybe I'll
on,
come back
but
to that. Yeah, good
yeah,
question.
yeah, maybe we'll go in more into the higher power question next
Yeah,
time.
that would be
Thank you.
good. Like
Yeah.
that. Maybe. Okay. Super.
All right.
Yeah.
Keep the element of surprise. Well, thank
Okay.
you so much for
All right.
joining us. I hope that you guys found it helpful.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.